Welcome to 2012, the year in film. I'm your host, Ryan Lemire. 2012 was a year few movie fans will forget. It was a year that saw blockbusters like The Avengers and The Hunger Games share the spotlight with smaller films like Moonrise Kingdom and Beasts of the Southern Wild. 2012 brought us Taken 2, Men in Black 3, Paranormal Activity 4, and more remakes than I could even count. But it was also a year where original and interesting work thrived critically and at the box office. Here to discuss the movie moments that made 2012 are Sean Robinson and Tom Bride. Neither of our guests today are movie critics or even movie bloggers. Both are rabid movie fans who represent the average moviegoer. They hold a lot of opinions, many you'll hear tonight. To start our overview of 2012's movies, we'll start with the summer movie season. The summer of 2012 was one of the highest grossing summers in recorded history, with The Avengers and The Dark Knight Rises leading the way. As different as these two movies were thematically, they were a lot alike besides being based on legendary comics. With strong directing, sharp writing, terrific ensembles, and a crowd-pleasing sense of excitement, both were among the best movies of the year. Sean and Tom, I know you've seen both these movies plenty of times. What were your opinions on these movies? Tom?
I enjoyed them both. I thought they were really fun. I saw them both in theaters. I saw The Dark Knight Rises on like the giant ultra screen. I thought that was kind of added to the movie. I really enjoyed them.
Sean?
Yeah, I totally agree. I saw Dark Knight in IMAX as well, and it was just astounding filmmaking. What made Avengers stand out, though, is it did the impossible. This is a movie that should never have been able to happen. You had an ensemble of strong characters all carrying their own movies independently, and you're throwing them all into a mix where any one of them could overshadow the other characters. And Joss Whedon managed to handle it in a way that we had a perfect balance of character, perfect balance of action, perfect balance of humor, to the point that when I was in the theater, people were laughing so hard we couldn't even hear the dialogue at points. We actually had to go see it again so we could catch up on everything. And then conversely, you have Dark Knight, which is basically the counter movie to Avengers, where it's so dark. And it emphasizes so much desperation through the movie that there's this weight on you as you're watching it. And they're just, shining examples of how to do comic book movies properly. Yeah,
I absolutely agree. Joss Whedon did an incredible job of supporting or giving everybody their time on screen, because like you said, it's almost never happens where you have an ensemble cast with such huge characters that get to share the screen. Now, I've heard rumors that JLA, Justice League of America, is coming out in 2015 around the same time as The Avengers. It sounds like it could be a huge flop because they're not leading up to it like they did with The Avengers. They're not giving everybody their separate storyline. So how are they going to balance all these different characters on one screen?
Well, the problem Warner Brothers has with this is they're playing catch up. Marvel has had their own studio going, and they've had success after success after success with these movies, and they've got Wave 2 planned, Wave 3 planned. Who knows how far they're going to go. Warner Brothers has had three Batman movies that have been very successful in the last 10 years, and a Superman movie that basically was just a continuation of the Richard Donner stuff and didn't live up to expectations. So now they're trying to play catch up, and they might be doing it the wrong way. We don't know for sure. It's just a matter of time to see.
Yeah, it's hard to say that a movie coming out in 2015 is already going to be a flop, what you just said.
I'm not saying it's going to be a flop. I think it's going to be hard to balance it like Joss Whedon had the ability to do, because you had all the backstories building up to it.
I think as long as they get a talented director and the writer behind it, it will be good. I think it could be a very good movie. I think it'll be fun.
It could be. It definitely could be. I mean, we had a couple missteps with Green Lantern, obviously.
Yeah, that was not very good.
No, they tried, but they didn't quite get it to where they wanted to go.
Yeah.
It's a problem with the corporations not realizing what they have in their hands, and they just want to get to where Marvel is, where they're pulling in a top 3 grossing film all time, and it's going to be tricky to do. The question is, can you get the characters to balance out on a screen where people don't always know who they are before getting other movies in?
So there were obviously more movies that came out in the summer of 2012 besides The Dark Knight Rises and The Avengers. What were other movies you guys saw this summer?
I saw The Master over the summer. I thought that was a really difficult movie. Like, it was fun to watch, but it was like really stressful at the same time. Looper, I saw that in theaters this summer. That was a great movie. I put that in my top 5 without a doubt.
Now, did you think they balance time travel. It's hard. It's a tricky thing to play with movies.
Well,
People
honestly,
get a
like it was
good
more
job.
like the balance for me was like between sci-fi and just kind of a more conventional movie. Like the first half of the movie takes place in this giant metropolis, and there are flying cars, and it's just it really gets into this great sci-fi world, which I loved. But then the second half of the movie takes place on a farm, and the movie, could have been 1950, it could have been 1990. So that was probably my only gripe with the movie, was that I think that was probably just a budget issue, but all of a sudden the movie went from this really cool world to just being set in Wisconsin, which we all know that's not great.
Did you see anything worth noting in 2012 of the summer?
I did. Dread was a huge surprise. I actually missed it in theaters because when it came out, it was out for like a week because it was unknown. We still had the bad taste of Stallone's Judge Dredd in our mouth.
That movie's great.
From all those years ago. And here's a movie that was shot for 3D, looked amazing. Even though I didn't see it in 3D, the way it was shot, you can tell, it's like, I wish I had seen this in the theaters. And it was everything a fan of the comic book series would want. He never takes the helmet off. The violence is extreme and brutal. The characters, for as simple of a movie as it is, it's two cops stuck in a building having to fight their way through. But the characters are there. And in fact, it's not even Dredd that's the main character. It's his sidekick who has the actual arc as far as growing. And it was just a huge surprise.
Well, as you can hear, our opinions are fairly vocal, but so are the ones held by people we caught up with on the street. Here, they talk about their favorite movies of the year. Take a look.
I actually didn't see very many, but I really loved Argo.
Any thoughts on what might win Best Picture?
Oh, I don't know. I really hope it is Argo, though. I really enjoyed that movie.
The new James Bond movie, Skyfall, felt like it was a return to the old Bond, and as a big Bond fan, it was great to see the old Aston Martins coming back, and Javier Bardem was a great villain, kind of a return to the villains of the old Bond movies.
Twilight, Breaking Dawn.
You liked Breaking Dawn?
Yes, I did.
It was probably The Hunger Games. I really liked that one a lot.
I'm going to have to say that Taken Part 2 was.
That'd be the Wes Anderson film, Moonrise Kingdom.
I got to go Batman. Batman was rad. I mean, he came back from the middle of the earth and kicked some bad butt, so it was pretty cool.
My favorite film of 2012 was Moonrise Kingdom, for sure.
I have quite a few. The Transformers and The Dark Knight were two good ones to me.
Probably the most thought-provoking favorite film would have to be Cloud Atlas.
That had to be Django Unchained.
I just recently saw The Hobbit.
Okay.
That was good, kind of long.
Last movie that I seen was Django. I liked it, and Zero Dark 30 was nice too.
It'd probably have to be Argo. I think just like the story in it and the effects and everything was just overall one of the better films of the year, probably.
I love Les Miserables. Les Mis? Okay.
I would have to say, if I had to say anything, it would probably be Django.
Ted.
Ted? Why'd you like that?
Because it was funny. I liked the teddy bear.
My favorite movie would have to be Cloud Atlas.
Well, see, I kept hearing really good things about Les Mis, but then I keep hearing, now that it's out, I keep hearing bad things.
Probably Marvel Avengers.
And what about you?
The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn.
My favorite film of 2012 was The Dark Knight Rises.
I hate James Bond.
No.
I like horror. I know there was one movie that was awesome. I cannot remember the name of it. I'm sorry. I failed.
Okay.
There were many great movies that came out in 2012, but there were just as many bad ones. For every Lincoln, there seemed to be 100 variations on That's My Boy. Sean and Tom, what did you think of some of the worst movies of 2012? Sean?
Well, I try to make a point that if a movie looks bad, not to go see it. But then sometimes you get stuck where you see a trailer and it actually looks pretty good, and so you're like, all right, I'll check it out. The one that stood out the most for me wasn't exactly the worst movie I've seen, but it was the biggest disappointment, and it was Silent House with Elizabeth Olsen. Here you have a movie that's taking place in a house. The gimmick is that it's a single shot. You know, they shot the whole movie single shot, which is not true, but they were very clever about it. And you've got 70 minutes of this fantastic, tense, what is in the house, what is after her, movie. And then the last 10 minutes happens, and I won't give it away for people who haven't seen it or want to see it. But for me, it just completely destroys the movie, that this ending contradicts and makes everything that happened before irrelevant.
You can't just focus on the good parts of that movie
No.
and just ignore the last 10
Well,
minutes.
I mean,
It sucks that, like, you had 70 minutes of awesomeness and then...
Something I remember from writers when I was in school is that an ending can make or break a movie. You can have a great movie with a terrible ending, and you can have a movie that's okay, but then the ending is just so strong that it redeems everything about it. And Silent House, unfortunately for me, was the latter. It just didn't come together.
Tom, worst movies?
The worst movie I saw in theaters was probably Premium Rush, the Bike Messenger movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I was, really prepared to love it. They got great reviews before I saw it, and I went in thinking it was going to be like, a really exciting movie where, you would feel the excitement and the anxiety of riding a bike in the middle of a city, but instead it was just boring.
Yeah.
The acting was so bad. Like, I honestly think it might be one of those movies that was like bad on purpose, but I didn't get that message. So like, if I had known that, if I had gone in with really low expectations, I probably would have enjoyed it, but I went in with high expectations and it didn't work at all. Michael Shannon was in the movie. He was actually pretty good. He was the villain, but everything else about the movie just did not work at all.
What movie I ended up seeing, and I saw it on Blu-ray, was Red Tails.
Oh.
Extremely disappointed at how bad that movie was. Acting was just terrible. There's not really that much of a storyline for Spielberg. I was just pretty disappointed. Anything else that you guys saw? Ghost Rider 2?
Yeah, no. We skipped that one.
No, I didn't see, honestly, now with the internet and with trailers and stuff like that and all the critics out there, I usually
It's hard
don't
to see
see
a bad
bad
movie.
movies.
Yeah.
But a movie I saw that was, I would say, labeled as disappointing. I would say Hunger Games. I enjoyed it, but I thought it was going to be a lot better. I thought the books were really fun, and I thought the movies would carry over with that, but it just left a lot to be desired. There wasn't, honestly, that sounds weird, but there just wasn't enough violence, and I wanted to see, people actually hurting each other. Sorry. But that didn't happen. Instead, every time something bad was about to happen, the camera would pan away and you would miss it. You would just hear it, which was disappointing.
From what I understood, they use a lot of the shaky cam to hide it. Keep the phoneticness, but hide the actual violence so we don't upset anybody. And I'm not a fan of the books. I actually read the first book and I hated it. I just felt it was completely devoid of character and any kind of life.
I mean, it's certainly no Twilight.
I still enjoy those, even though they're not great. I still enjoy the Twilight.
So you enjoy Twilight. Do you enjoy the Twilight movies?
I've never read the books, so
Okay.
I can't comment on that. It's just not my thing. But I've always been a vampire and werewolf type guy, so my wife talked me into watching the movies.
So
and
being a vampire type guy and you still like Twilight?
There's hundreds of legends of vampires. I mean, this is just another iteration of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because people are always complaining oh, this isn't how vampires are supposed to be. What do you mean? There are no vampires. Vampires are whatever the creator, the writer wants to make them. I always get
you've got
eye roll.
You've got the original 1930s Dracula, which was the first real romanticized version. You've got Anne Rice's take on it, which is super sexualized, super romanticized. You've got 30 Days a Night, which is monstrosities, which goes back to what Nosferatu was.
Yeah.
And now you've got the Twilight ones, where, in a way, they don't necessarily appeal to the general male aesthetic of what vampire movies are, because it is more of a love story than it is a monster movie.
Sure.
But I mean, it gets a lot of flack for the sparkliness of the vampires, but it's just another tweak to the legend that people have used. People pick and choose what they want to use for the legend. Some sunlight doesn't bother them. Some they sparkle. Some
they can wear a ring and they're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, the Academy Awards are just around the corner, and it's sure to be a night of glamour and excitement. But what does the public think should win the big prize? We interviewed some fans just before the nominations were announced. Were they right on the money? Check it out.
Who do you think is going to win Best Picture at the Oscars?
Me. No. Django, of course. It was awesome.
Best Picture? I think Argo. Argo was, the way Ben Affleck did that movie, I think Argo deserves it.
I'm thinking Django Unchained, probably, just because I've heard such good buzz, and Quentin Tarantino, I heard did a really good job.
I would hope Les Mis would. That probably has the best chance, or that I liked.
Django Unchained.
You think it's going to be Django Unchained?
Yeah.
I forgot what came out in 2012.
Spielberg's always a contender. I think with the release of Lincoln around the holidays, that bodes pretty well, considering it's both historical and epic in nature. I'm going Lincoln.
I hope Django wins it.
Any reason?
I just saw it and I really liked it.
I did hear a lot about Les Mis, which I'd like to go see.
I think Argo might win. I heard yesterday that it was nominated, so I believe it'll pull through. I think he's a good actor. I think it was a really good movie, one of the better ones. A little bit more on the real side, not so science fiction, so I liked it. It was really good.
I think Les Mis might win from whatever. That's what, I don't know, I hear more buzz about that than anything else.
Well, if I had to say anything about the Oscar committee that I've noticed, they really need to start paying attention to original concept and development of materials. Martin Scorsese did movies for years, and they finally give him an Oscar for doing a Japanese remake.
I saw The Hobbit a little while ago, and I thought that, like, all the animation and everything in that movie was just great. So I think they have a really good shot.
Did Mama come out in 2012? Because if so, I think that's going to be one of the ones.
That was this year.
Oh, it was.
Once again, Cloud Atlas, it's just Oscar bait. You have, Tom Hanks and Halle Berry in a film that spans 1,000 years, with each character being able to have several roles. It's a very interesting concept, and it's something that I find the Academy would very much enjoy.
I'm not quite sure at this time.
Best Picture, definitely, based off one of the best books, is The Hobbit.
Transformers.
Any reason, or just
I noticed a lot. There was a lot of audiences going and seeing that one a lot and really liking it and seeing it like a second time. So that might be one of the top ones at least, if it doesn't even win.
Okay.
But I would say, yeah, I would go for that.
All right, Sean and Tom, now that you've heard what these guys think, what do you guys think of this year's Oscar nominations? And just to remind everybody that's watching, the nominees for Best Picture are Amour, Argo, Beasts of the Southern Wild, Django Unchained, Les Miserables, Life of Pi, Lincoln, Silver Linings Playbook, and Zero Dark 30. Pretty strong group of flicks, guys. What do you think, Tom?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a great list. I've seen most of those movies. I didn't see Amour, and honestly I probably won't. I try to make it a rule that I don't see movies that have nothing to say. Like a movie's about 80-year-old people that are in love, and I'm 24, so I don't know if there's a lot to speak to me about that. But Lincoln I loved, and Argo, all those movies I thought were excellent. I'm glad they were nominated.
Sean?
I have been very bad. I haven't actually gotten out to see any of the big movies for the Oscars this year.
Oh, Sean.
I know.
Oh, Sean.
It's my job. I get very busy at Christmas time. I'm always on the road.
Well, I would definitely recommend seeing Lincoln. I thought that was incredible.
Lincoln looks amazing. Django, I still got to go see. Argo, I wanted to see when I was in theaters and I missed it. No, it's a strong crowd this year. It's actually the first time in a few years that I've actually been interested in what's being nominated for the Oscars.
Sure.
I think what's interesting about what I thought are three of the best movies of the year, Lincoln, Zero Dark 30, and Argo, and even Les Miserables, was that these were movies that everyone knows the ending of these movies. All four of those movies, everyone knows that Lincoln's going to get assassinated. Everyone knows that the people in Argo are going to come home safely. You know how Les Mis, because it's just such a well-known...
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, Lincoln does die at the end. And in Zero Dark 30, at the end, obviously, Osama bin Laden is killed. So, I thought it was really interesting the way they were all those movies were still able to get a lot of tension and a lot of excitement out of their stories while everyone in the theater knows exactly what's going to happen at the end of the movie, which is, I think, really tough to do. And it really speaks to the quality of the movie.
Zero Dark 30 definitely did that for me. It was
oh, yeah.
The entire movie was just building up to this one moment. And by the time it happened, it was like you're sitting on the edge of your seat, you got this knot in your stomach, you're waiting.
Yeah.
And it's that they all survived. The helicopter crashed.
Yep.
They got him. You know the ending. You know everything. Yeah. And yet you still found yourself drooling, shoving popcorn in your face. This is so exciting.
Yeah.
Now another movie that was on the list that I'm probably going to cause some controversy over is Les Mis. I wasn't impressed. I was extremely let down. I didn't think the editing in it. I thought the story didn't flow as far as it didn't come together on the screen as it did in the theater. And there was a lot of the singing I was not impressed with.
Yeah, it wasn't on my top 5 either. I thought that it kind of got a little boring, and it felt very long. It's Zero Dark 30 and Les Mis about the same runtime, and I could have watched Zero Dark 30 for another hour, and 45 minutes into Les Mis, I was wishing it was over. So That speaks a lot to to that problem. But I thought Les Mis was good. It's cool to see a musical on the big screen. It was something you don't get to see every day, so I'm glad I saw it.
Yeah, that's why I don't know if it was because I had high hopes for it. and I was just let down or what, but I totally agree with you. It just felt like an extremely long movie. And there was awkward moments where, you know, there was really long cuts of somebody 2 feet from the camera. And the only thing I could think about the entire time was, wow, this must be really hard for her to not look directly in the camera, because you know it's this close to them, and it's been sitting on them for 6 minutes, and they're singing. And
well, I'm sure that Sean can speak to this as well. Is that like it's really interesting the way that expectations play into the actual viewing experience you have.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like when I saw, you know, Dark Knight Rises, I was ready for that movie for, you know, 2 years, and so for it to live up to that was really difficult. Whereas sometimes you see a movie that, you know, like Cloud Atlas was just, it came out and I saw it and I loved it.
Yeah.
So I think that's, you know, really interesting. I always wonder about that when I'm in theaters.
As if it's going to live up to your hype, and if it doesn't,
Or
does that make it a bad movie?
Yeah, and is it my fault? You know, is it because I built it up so high that that's the reason I didn't like it?
Sure. I mean, I was impressed from a technical standpoint that they were able to capture the singing and everything on the set. I know there's basically only one song where they had to go back and redub it, was because the mics got trashed the first scene when they're in the water pulling the ship in.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, from a technical standpoint, sure, it's great, but I don't think it's Best Picture material. I don't think it's definitely not going to win Best Picture. So.
No.
All right, well, moving on. Now that we've put 2012 behind us and are into another year of great film, I want to know what you guys are looking forward to in 2013. We have a lot to look forward to with Iron Man 3, Man of Steel, another installment of Die Hard. Is there anything in particular you guys are excited about, Sean?
Pacific Rim for me. I mean, top of the list. I grew up watching Godzilla movies, and I grew up watching the Robotech cartoon. And Guillermo del Toro has now taken the love of both those things and he's thrown it together into this.
Made the perfect movie. For
exactly. It's like this movie of people in ginormous mechanical robot suits battling gigantic monsters. And the concept is so simple. It's a rift is open, monsters have come through. They are just trashing everything, and we got to fight them off somehow. And it just looks spectacular.
Anything you're looking forward to, Tom?
Well, I'm pumped for that movie too, mainly because Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia somehow is in this movie, which I think is awesome.
That's right.
But personally, I'm really looking forward to, earliest would probably be Pain and Gain, the new Michael Bay movie. Looks like it's going to be like hysterical and just ridiculous.
Looking forward to that, but okay.
Spring Breakers, the movie with Selena Gomez, directed by the guy that did Kids. Looks like it's going to be very weird.
That's an odd combination.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I need. To the Wonder, it's got the new Terrence Malick movie. I cannot wait for it. I'm a huge Terrence Malick nerd, so that'll be great. And then lastly, I would say Upstream Color is this new movie by Shane Carruth, who did Primer, which is a very technical sci-fi time travel movie, which was awesome. And this is his first movie in a decade, so.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
A couple other ones that I'm looking forward to. Obviously, Now You See Me. It's the reteaming of Woody Harrelson and
Jesse Eisenberg.
Jesse Eisenberg, thank you. It keeps slipping my mind. But the combination of magic and technology of these guys that are basically thieves. And it looks really, really cool. We got the new Star Trek coming.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
Anyone who saw the first one is very excited for this one. The new Die Hard, which comes out in like 2 weeks from now.
Rated R this time.
Yes,
which
is a
hopefully
huge,
we'll save it.
huge thing for me. And World War Z. If you guys are zombie fans,
absolutely.
This is the big one. The CG looks a little spotty right now, but we still got 6-7 months till it comes out.
Yeah.
So it looks to be big.
I cannot tell you how excited I am about World War Z. Read the book years ago. Was excited when they had where there was talks of the movie being made, and then all the struggles. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Then they started production, then they stopped production, and Brad Pitt broke his ankle. And when that first trailer came out, I almost fell off my couch. I was watching YouTube, and I was on Facebook, and somebody posted a link, and I had no idea that the trailer was even going to be released. I agree with the special effects. They look a little shoddy. All the zombies, they look like the water flowing.
Yeah, it was like what do they call it? Like a swarm.
Yeah, sure.
I think part of the reason they released the trailer kind of unfinished was because they needed to show people we have a handle on it.
We are doing something.
Yeah, because they had all those reshoots that got announced, and there was a lot of bad buzz on the internet about, oh, this movie's going to be terrible. This is already over. So just like Ryan's already killing Justice League in 2015. So yeah, it's crazy how much power the internet has over these movies, where all of a sudden the ball gets rolling, this movie's gonna suck, and everyone agrees, and it's over.
Sure. Another one I'm looking forward to, Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
finally gonna get to see the Mandarin.
Which
has been building.
Is that Ben Kingsley?
That will be Ben Kingsley. Yep.
That's cool.
I'm interested to see what story arc this follows. If it's doing the extremists and.
From what I understand, they are bringing in elements of the extremists. How much so, I'm not sure, but I did see something where he's got because his arms are all labeled numbers,
Yes.
and it's like the Mark 40 something, which
Yes.
means there's another 30 some behind him.
You guys are going way over my head right now.
Sorry, just
is this
geeking
gonna?
out a
All I
little
need to
bit.
know is like, is this gonna be like a sequel to Iron Man 2, or is it a sequel to Avengers?
It's
Or is
taking
it the
place-
same thing?
It's a sequel to both, actually.
Okay.
Because he's talking about the aftermath of the events.
So that
of what
will
happened.
be recognized in the movie.
From my understanding, they don't talk a lot about the Avengers. There's references to
New York.
Yeah,
You know,
but,
the
being,
events,
like,
yeah.
but that's
destroyed
another
and-
thing. Like, there's references to New York, but what is he? Are they talking about the Avengers, the event that happened, or are they talking about the extremist storyline where his body's taken over and he starts killing everybody? Because there are those scenes where they're in the abandoned house and there's
That's right.
the nuclear shadows or the atomic shadows of people. So I'm curious as to what he's referencing there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun no matter what.
So this has been quite a lively conversation, I must say. I want to thank our terrific guests, Sean Robinson and Tom Bride, for coming in today and giving us their unique input. I'm Ryan Lemire, so thanks for watching.